Okay, it seems like we're up. Seems like we're live. Just wait to get a confirmation over here. Sure it sounds okay. Just wait to get a confirmation over here. Okay, perfect. Then yeah, guess we're on. Okay, it seems stream like number 4. Seems like we're live. Let's mute that guy. Oh, it looks fine on both streams. All right, let's proceed. So what was I even doing on this? Let's go back and get kind of see where we're at with it. So we ended up with a Patreon one. We ended up with a Twitch one. We ended up with an X one. And we ended up with a YouTube banner one. So that's so far so good. Also, I made a couple of small edits to this code between stream sessions because I wanted to edit and upload a video on the Barton Codes YouTube channel. And so I made a tweak to one that does this, that kind of off-centers the thing, and I dulled out the colors a little bit. And I want to make another one of these to make video previews, or sorry, like thumbnails. So, and the way I accomplished that in the code over here is I made another brand type. So far, we'd only been considering like the banner brand type. I added one called frame that's supposed to be for like the size of a YouTube video frame, like a 1080p single image. And then I added just a small handful of special rules, like to change the padding on the dark thing and to change the way the location of the text gets calculated. So I'm trying to think of what I want to do today. We reached a pretty good midpoint where now we've kind of proven the concept that we can specify these different things and we can come up with different images. Oh, just for fun, let's look at how that actually turned out on each of the platforms. So if I go like a look on Twitch. Well, right now you can't see it because I'm live. I don't have a screenshot of what it looked like. There's a background up here that gets oh, are you saying there's no audio? I thought I tested it. I thought I could hear myself. Yeah, I hear myself on the stream. Oh, okay. No problem. Yeah, I don't see it on the thing here, but it is uploaded on there. You can check like I split out 2 YouTube channels. So I've got, this is the channel where I'm currently live. I want to be live on the other one, but it made me wait another 24 hours after enabling streaming. So here's where I uploaded an actual video, and you can see how the banner looks over here that we generated, which is pretty cool. This is if I do view image, is it the full one? No, actually it literally did cut it down to that one. I uploaded the full one, but that's all right. That's why we calculated an area of interest to work in. Then I've also got a Barton Codes live channel. Right now this is using the same one, but since there's going to be 2 YouTube channels, I actually wanted to find 2 color schemes. And honestly, I kind of hate this red and orange. So I'll probably make them 2 color schemes that are not red and orange and generate separate branding for each one. Here's, yeah, so this is the channel that's going to have the archive of all the live streams. Okay, where else did I put it? I've got a Patreon set up if you guys want to support me to do what I'm doing. I think that'll take me to it. So on Patreon, you can see that we've got the yellow one that we had defined. And I've got an X account. I'm going to start this off stream because who knows, I haven't really used the X account and it's putting crazy shit for me. I haven't like followed anybody and it does not know what I want to see. Alright, that looks fine. So you can see that we've also got the X banner uploaded over here. So we've got a first pass of this stuff coming together. It looks pretty good. So that takes us to what do we want to do today? And there's a couple of tasks. In terms of the actual image generation, I can expand this to make profile images, which I have a cool plan for that. I'm not sure if I'm going to get to that today. There's a beautiful pencil sketch that my now wife made of me when we were dating. And I think probably I could take a good photograph of that and apply some filters to it in code and turn that into a nice profile photo that I could use everywhere instead of this little snake thing that I got from a previous company. The other thing that I was having a thought about is, and obviously I want to expand this thing so that I can use it to make thumbnails, video titles, like intro and outro screens, maybe even slides for inside a video, like if I need a screen that just like lists out a few bullet points or something. So there's a couple more general use cases, and those start to stretch beyond the niceness of this format where, last time we got these all set up in JSON files to represent each profile. So I would still want one of these profiles, but I don't really want to go and let's say I was going to use this to make thumbnails, right? Put this back in. Like this, yeah. Let's say I wanted to use this to make video thumbnails. I don't really want to come in here and edit the JSON file to have the thumbnail title and stuff over and over again. What I'd really like to do is be able to apply one of these profiles, or a couple of these profiles, to make and fill in some details each time I generate. The other thing I'd like to do is I'd like to be able to run the tool, without generating all of these every time necessarily, or give myself some control over regenerating them. So I was imagining, what if we turned this into a little Windows Forms application? That would be kind of interesting content to show, and we ended up with a little actual Forms app that we could do. So that's what I might work on today, is actually moving this in the direction of becoming a Windows Forms application instead of just a console app that I mash the button every time I want to run it. So I have not started from a Windows Forms project. So I don't know all the stuff I would need to add to that, but I could potentially, just move it into a Windows Forms project. That actually might be what I want to do. Since we're already in a repository called branding, maybe I want to just make this well, yeah, let's do that. So, I don't know. First of all, before I do that, let's just Google briefly. I know exactly what I want to do. Now, you can add Windows Forms functionality to a console application by modifying your project file or adding a reference in Visual Studio. Yeah, I think we already did that. Save for .NET Framework projects. Update your code, make sure you're using this. Code within the main method to load your form. If that's really all we have to do, then I might be able to just do it like that. Is that what we want to do? Okay. Maybe that would be easiest. Alright, so first we're going to need to add a project or a package reference or whatever. Is it a project reference? Like, what's this guy saying? This guy tried to do the same thing as me. Add reference to the system.windows.form. Do I need that package like separately? It's not a NuGet package, is it? Yeah, okay. Is it like a project reference? No. Is it in here? System Windows Forms, is this what I need? Yeah, I don't really know, this is kind of weird. Oh, like this is one for like the old .NET framework, and this is one for like the new .NET framework. I think I'm just going to let it set up a new project for me that's configured to run Windows Forms, and then I'm going to move this code over to it. So we've already got a solution file, so we can just add a new project inside that. Let's do a new project. Oh. So we want a Windows Forms app. I guess that's what it's called now. What is the difference here? V8? Project template for creating. Oh, and Visual Basic VB. Okay. No, I want C# for sure. Yeah, let's try that one. I've already created a branding repository here, right? So all my code is inside here. I think this is, yeah, this is the root of my Git directory. So I guess I did like project and solution file in same directory, which now is not really what I want. That's all right. If I add a new project inside this solution, then I can probably move the files I actually care about to the new project. So let's try this. How do I, this project and solution in the same directory. I don't want it to create a new solution is the problem. How do I do that? Do I go here and like add project? Add new project? Okay. So here I want C# Windows Forms app. Barton codes WinForms app 1. But now I actually want to put it in the folder. We'll call this brand generator maybe. Okay. So this should put it, this /branding folder is where my Git repository is. Sure, .NET 10 is fine. Alright. And I don't want to use the form designer, I hate that shit. So let's go and see inside my branding directory, what did it create? So it created a new folder called brand generator that's got the new project file and stuff in it. So I think I'm going to move this code over to the brand generator project. And then I'm probably going to delete the branding project, because I really only want the one and I want it to be in that subfolder. So let's do that. Let's take all of these, except for the outputs, that can stay at the top level. The outputs and the inputs should stay at the top level. Profiles, that's my inputs. But all of these actual code directories, we can move into brand generator. Are you gonna let me click and drag? What's wrong? Why can't we? I can click one. If I do two, now it won't give me a right click. Interesting. Gotta do them one at a time. Let's close the form design. Let's move brand over. And I think when I drag a folder like this, I think it copies. So I'll have to move them and then delete them. So yeah, this branding still has a brand folder. And inside brand generator, now it also has a brand folder. Okay. So that's just copying the files. So I want brand package to come over there. I want our namespace or whatever. I want filters to come over there. I want generators to come over there. And I want JSON to come over there. And I want util to come over there. Okay, and then inside here, yeah, I don't want this old program CS, although there's some important stuff that I want from it. All these color profiles, I don't want to lose that. We'll move that over in just a second. But for here, I'm going to go ahead and delete the old versions of these. Filters, delete, generators, delete, JSON, delete, profiles. Outputs and profiles are going to stay here. Utils, code, so that gets deleted. Of course, the most important thing here is this static read-only color profiles. Where I'll put that util is not really the right place for it. I guess I'm going to move it there for now. Stuff can go in. Just put it there for now so we don't lose it. And over here, I've also got code we don't want to lose that loads the profiles. Where does that stuff go? Like in some kind of a profile manager class. Guess it's technically in mine. I'll put this in here for now. I might move it later. I'm gonna make this stuff not static. I really hate static code sitting around. Like, it really inhibits the flexibility of your application after you try to start doing different stuff with it than you're already doing. So I really want these to be object methods, and if I create only one instance of the object, then so be it, that's fine. Let's take this stuff over. This one really only should know about the input. I might also have like a render manager or something that actually does the loop through. Yeah, I'm also going to put that in here for now, but that's not really where it should go. Sorry, what's up? Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we can, I don't know if we'll get to this today, but this is the picture that I was talking about. Look at how nice that photo is, or that drawing. Really, really beautiful. I really loved it when she made it for me. So we'll, yeah, when we get to that part to make the profile images, I will take this and take a nice photo of it, then we'll use some of the filters to clean it up and turn it into, you know, kind of like apply our color theme to it for each one. I think that's going to be super sweet. Let's see, I can set it up here maybe temporarily. Alright, let's call this. I also really hate suffixing classes like manager. So almost certainly I'm going to take these two classes and rename them. I'm just trying to move the code that I don't want to lose. So I grabbed the parse profile and load profiles. Now what I really just want is the stuff that's currently in main. So these would be like, for now, I guess it's going to, no, say we pass it a profile manager. I'll do a reference to that. Make sure it's initted. Then here we're going to do oh, you're also going to get outputs directory. Yeah. I might pass those in as well. Okay. So this is going to go through and render all. Okay, so I think everything important in this file has been captured now. We've got the profile manager has this path to the profiles. The render manager has this path to the outputs. We got these parse profile and load profiles functions in the profile manager. And we've got all of these color definitions in the colors util. So I think now we're safe to delete this main file. Now for the outputs, okay, so I want to, how am I going to do that? Probably what I just want to do, because I'm worried if I delete this project, it's going to want to delete all this other stuff inside it. I don't want that. So probably I'm going to remove the project from the solution. And then over here in the file explorer, I'm going to delete the stuff that I don't want. So like I don't want this bin and all this other crap in here, but I do want like the top level git ignore. I want the solution file. I don't want that solution project. I want the license file, and I want these two to stay at the top level. So let's take like bin and obj. That's like my compiling output directories. Clean those up. We want the brand generator project, obviously. We want outputs and profiles. We want the git ignore. We don't want the branding CS proj. We do want the solution. Okay. So that's pretty much what we want. And the last thing, I want to be able to still see these two in Visual Studio. So I wonder if now we need like add new solution folder. How do I get it to see? So now this is cleaned up nicely, but I want to like existing project, add existing items. Can I do that directly to the solution? Outputs, profile, and the get ignore, and the license maybe. So now I have solution items. It's okay with these two. So we got the get ignore. We got there we go. We got the license file, the MIT license. How come it did not add us like the profiles directory? I really want to be able to see the new solution folder. The folder of items inside the solution. So that's going to create me a folder inside the solutions directory. Okay. If that's the only thing it understands, maybe we tackle it like this. New folder 1. Did that create? It did not create a new folder 1. Let's rename this like new profiles old. Now let's try to add a new solution folder. Profiles. Did that create a folder out here? No, it did not. Maybe I don't have to do that. Maybe I just have to match it to what's already there and then tell it to add the items inside. Like, inside here, can I add existing items? Okay, there we go. Profiles, and then you can also add solution folder. Outputs, make sure I change this directory name back. And then here, add existing items. It's going to be all my output stuff. And these are the ones, yeah, okay, good, it correctly realizes this should be ignored by get. So I guess right now I have anything in any kind of folder named outputs excluded in the get ignore. All right, cool. So now we've got these files available in Visual Studio. We've got the brand generator project. Okay, it won't let me rearrange it. Now, let's set about getting this thing to actually work. So this made us a program that launches form1.cs. And I don't really want this. I want there to be an actual form class. Let's make a source file in here called GUI. Let's make a thing in here, which is like a generator form. I wish I called this brand generator, but now I wish I made a conflict between these two, because I have things called generators and I called the whole thing the brand generator. That's gonna get annoying. How do we want to resolve that? I think if I want to rename this project, I just have to like unload it from Visual Studio, like remove it from the solution temporarily and then rename it. So let's do that. Let's remove you. Oh, sure. Then what do I want to call it instead? a brand generator. This is like I just call it the app. Sure, I'm not using that terminology anyway. Inside here, we'll rename these two project files. App CS proj. App CS proj.user. Okay, so now I got a branding solution, and inside that I've got a thing called app. So now let's go back in Visual Studio and add the existing item, or add existing project probably. And I want to pick branding app CS proj. All right, here we go. So now we've got branding and we've got app. And the last thing I want to do is in my project properties, we want to update the default namespace, because right now it's just going to want to start everything with app, but I want it to have the whole solution namespace. So I'm just going to hard code this to branding.app. So now new folders, all this I want to be in instead of brand generator namespace. I want it all in the branding.app namespace. All right. When you do a Windows Forms application, this part's important. This stat thread, STAT thread, is to keep all the code that runs and from this main method inside a special form. Inside a special thread, sorry. So you have like the GUI thread, which has to remain in like properly synchronized so that it can paint with the screen and all that different stuff. And all of the main code that you want to run the forms on, the GUI code on, should all be on that particular thread, on the UI thread. So that's the only purpose of this. Otherwise, okay, application configuration initialize. I probably don't need that. Cannot open file. I don't even know where that comes from. Well, maybe I leave that alone for now. But then this also, I don't want form 1. I want something like in the GUI. So now we can rename this something more appropriate. I'm going to call this the app form, just to designate that it's like the top level UI element of app. And we're going to make this, some people would be annoyed that I make all these internals into publics, because it's like not going to get used by another application. I don't know, that might be a bad coding style on my part. But I'm just going to roll with it for now. I'm not going to worry about it. Alright, so now we're going to update our namespace. This should really be in branding app GUI, and this I want to extend form. Then there's some constructor stuff you can do in here. But for now, let's set auto size mode, set client size. Why do we say core? I don't know why it says why it's called core. I thought it was just set client size. Adjust the client size of the form, adjust the bounds to make the, yeah, okay. Well, that's what I want to do, but let's make this like a, let's make it like a 720 size window. And we set a title. just attribute. How do I set the title of this thing? I have to look up a couple of things. Is it just text? Is it caption? See, everything that I try to look up is going to go and tell me about how you do it in the, oh, this dot text, okay. It's going to tell me about how to do it in, like, the GUI editor, but I really don't care about the GUI editor. I don't want to use it at all. So it's dot text, that's what I'm interested in. Okay, so this is app form. I don't want this form 1 at all. With the designer file and the code behind file and all that. So now I want this to load a new app form, which is going to use our GUI namespace. I don't really know what this does, but bootstrap the application as follows. Enable visual styles, set compatible rendering default, false, set high DPI mode system away. Okay, I don't really know what all that does. I'm not going to mess with it for now. I'm going to remove some of these superfluous generated comments. I'm going to make this public just to be consistent. Oh, do I need to mess with the startup object? I'm going to double check it. I don't know if I do or not. It should be the same as the one it generated. The startup object is the first thing. Ah, see, it says not set. Oh, because I changed the namespace, that's why. So I really want that to be branding.app.program, which is going to be this class. That's the class it's going to look for the main method inside of. So if you go and muck with this file or change the namespace or anything, and your project won't launch, that's probably what you need to mess with. Okay, so now we've got an app form. Also, I don't know how to turn this behavior off. Really what I want is if I double click this file, this app form, it opens like a normal code file. But I know for a fact what's going to happen if I double click it is it's going to try to launch the GUI designer in here. And the GUI designer, and that is a consequence, is going to create like .design file, like a generated code file that the GUI editor manages for me. I don't want that. I don't want generated code. Not because I have a problem with the computer generating code for me, but because the computer's bad. Computer's bad. It's writing. Feel like it's just gonna, as I edit the form around on the window, it's gonna get, you know, sloppy. It's gonna put stuff in a random order. It's just not gonna be nice source code. So I'm not gonna double click this every time I want to open it. I'm gonna have to do this like view code option. So okay, we set startup object to program. Program is going to create a new app form. And app form should set the title and set the window size. Now, before I try to run it, just to get our empty form, probably I'm going to have to make a pass through these other files and update their namespaces. So that they're all consistent. Oh, and you know, I might have to add that, didn't I have to add like some kind of Windows drawing? Project dependency. I believe I did. Just the ones in here. And the filters. Does it have it added at like the solution level? Manage NuGet packages. Installed, no packages found. Oh, maybe the drawing thing comes by default in a Windows Forms app and it doesn't come by default in a... I bet that's what's going on. Like here, if I look at the dependencies for the app project. Forms, crap, analyzers, frameworks, Microsoft Net Core, Microsoft Windows Desktop App Core. This comes with does it come with like system.drawing or whatever that namespace was? Yeah, okay. So this already comes with system.drawing and system.drawing.common. So this time, because I'm doing Windows Forms app, I don't have to add it manually. I should just know what that stuff is. All right, great. So we're gonna update the namespaces in here. Brand.app.filters. Let's do that in each of our filters. Okay, let's go and update our generators. Binary generator. I'm actually surprised that more of these files aren't complaining about not being able to find the thing that they're looking for. I'm sure it'll come up when I try to build it. Then in here, I already did this one, right? We're in branding.app.gui. Okay. And JSON folder. These are going to be all in. I'm gonna make trouble with select text. Okay, then I want to, I need to do it in the color util also. Alright, so we adjusted the namespaces for all the files. Now the next thing that's going to happen when I try to build this is it's going to complain probably. I'm going to get a bunch of errors that it doesn't know what this class is, doesn't know what that class is. And the reason for that is because now all of my, yeah, see, build errors. It does not exist, does not exist, does not exist. I'm surprised it's not highlighting the errors in here, which is a little bit weird. But it's because I need to update the... Oh, I see. The first thing it's complaining about is that these old imports that I'm doing don't even work. So let's just strip those out. Now it should complain that stuff is not found. Let's do that. This is a kind of a goofy way to do it, but okay, these ones actually didn't have any dependencies, the brand stuff. They just depend on each other. The filters also did not really depend on each other, really. So these did not have dependencies on other stuff. Generators, this had util. Gradient generator didn't have, my generator didn't have, resize didn't have, text generator didn't have, okay. GUI we just created, the JSON ones also, oh, they had a dependency on branding.brand. These namespaces don't exist anymore. Okay. So now I'm not trying to load namespaces that don't exist. Now it should be complaining that it doesn't know what these classes are. What's going on? How come I don't have like a red line or like editor support on this? I'm gonna restart Visual Studio. That's messed up. I'm expecting it to give me like a red squiggly line and a couple of like autofix options that'll let me pick one and automatically connect the right namespace, so I don't have to go typing by hand everywhere. Let's just kill Visual Studio and try to launch it again. Sometimes when you like add and remove projects and do stuff like that, it gets in a kind of a messed up state. Yeah, let's add this whole solution. It should bring us into the app here. There we go. See, that's what I was looking for. So now it doesn't know what a brand profile is. That's because we have to import the new namespace. It doesn't know what color profiles is. That's actually because that moved to color util. It doesn't know what color util is because it needs the namespace reference. Surely that's not everything. There's going to be a bunch more. Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's fine. I never even nuked that reference. So color profile here. Yeah. It's going to be from there. And we're just going to play whack-a-mole until we have all of that. Each time I fix one of these, it tries to compile some more files that it didn't try the previous time, and it runs into more of these problems. A noise filter comes from the filters, binary generator, branding app generators. Okay, that should be good. I'm just gonna like burn through these, and the only thing I should have to do is add these namespace references. And this could make an interesting video with a little bit more commentary, actually, for people who want to do like a big refactor to like try to move their code around. Because this kind of stuff is really annoying when you have a large project that's very established and you try to like rearrange how your code's gonna work, and then it all breaks. Oh, this is inaccessible. It's because it was private. But now, oh, private static. Now we want these to be public methods on the object. Okay, so that should be fine. It should be resolved now. Hey, and we got it. So now we've got a nice big empty window to work with here. And probably that's going to end up being more window space than we need. We'll see. So I was trying to imagine like what kind of a window do I actually want to have in here. So probably it's going to be so what's the workflow of this tool? I can think through like what's a good view for this, like here. The workflow for this tool is, let's say I get done coding it completely, and in the future I just want to use it. I just want to use it to keep generating title images, or updating, branding profile stuff somewhere. So I still want it to load a set of JSON files that describe each of the profile types. But in here, I probably want it to build me a list of the profile types. And maybe for each profile type, I want it to have like a checkbox for whether I want to generate that profile type right now. And then I probably wanted to have some settings. I was thinking about like we could wire up some GUI settings over here maybe. So like, do you want to render it like this? Do you want to render it like that? Especially for the types that are like a title image, so you can imagine for like a video title card, I might want to pick like, I don't know, let's say I was making like a thumbnail, right? So a thumbnail has some kind of a background. It's got some kind of a let's say hypothetically I want a thing that's like, it shows like a nice background, like textured background, and then it's got like part of a screen of the code and part of the screen of my face, and then maybe like a series title, and then maybe like like a video title that each need to be rendered differently. I could actually like make each of those different selectable elements in here. So if that was going to be the case, then probably each different profile that I want to turn on, I need to select it and have it bring up like settings for that profile type, and let me pick the settings for that particular profile type. So I can go and like pick this image, you know, toggle on and off, like do draw like this, don't draw like that, blah, blah, blah. The other thing I was imagining, this might be the reason to make it a big window, is probably I should have like a preview window. So if I've gone and selected one of these profiles, like each time, imagine there's like a list box here. I click one of these and it should like put me a preview down here of what the thing is going to look like. And then when I like, so I would select one and I would select like video title, for example. Then I want to, so I select video title, it's going to pop me up the settings over here for video titles. And it's also going to put me a preview of what like my video title screen would look like. Then I'm going to come and pick like, don't do this shading, increase this. And I pick a picture of my face here. And then that's going to come and render out into the actual profile, or into the actual preview here. So then somewhere after this whole thing, I'm going to need like a generate button. Now here's a question. Do I want to like pick one, generate, pick one, generate, pick one, generate? That might be fine because, well, first of all, each profile, I want to think about that. So we've actually got two things. We've got profile types, or like what we call brand types. So, you know, we're like, one is like banners, and then banners has got stuff for like YouTube, Twitch, blah, 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 blah. So probably, if this is going to be a table of profiles, it's going to have a list of like, should be like a table. I want like a checkbox by each one. I want a checkbox, or I just want it to operate on the selected one. And then maybe I get like a select all button or something. So I'd come in, it would load up. If I want to generate everything, I hit like select all and then render. Otherwise, it comes in without anything selected or with a default thing selected. And I pick one. So that way, like if I wanted to update all of my Twitch banners, then I would come in here. I would like select a group of like all the different Twitch banner profiles. Oh, the preview is not going to really work now. I guess if you have a group selected, it's going to show you the preview of the first one. So you could just click through one by one and see what the preview looks like, and maybe modify any settings for those types. Oh yeah, how's the settings thing going to work if you have multiple selected? I guess it should really be a single select. And it should have checkboxes. So each row should have a checkbox for whether you want to generate that right now. Because what I'm trying to avoid is that like I make a tweak to how the like banner rendering works, and I've got like 6 different apps, and I want to avoid like clicking this one, generate, this one, generate, this one, generate, this one, generate. It'd be nice to just like check boxes for all the ones that I want to get, and then hit generate. And that's a separate workflow from if I had a title here, or sorry, like a, yeah, like let's say I wanted to make a video thumbnail, then I would load this in with nothing selected, and I would just click like video title, and there it would pop me up some settings here. Now the other thing about this is if I'm gonna actually do this work, I want it to remember what I had selected for settings and stuff the last time. So now there's a distinction between what information is in the profile and what information is in the editable settings, because there's some information that's like part of a profile, like you know, we don't want to have to come in here and configure like the size and the area of interest and the color scheme and stuff like that. But there's other parts of it that are editable, like configurable settings for how I'm going to render that profile. So we'll have to work on that distinction as well. And probably we'll have this thing spit out like a JSON file with all of its configuration. So there'll be like a save button kind of that saves the state of it. And then the next time I close it and load it back up, it'll go and read that JSON file and pull in all of the settings that I previously had configured. So that'd be a nice workflow. Then I'll have like a little GUI application. And when I want to make new video titles or something, I'll just pop open this application, go and pick like thumbnail, and then go and type in like a couple of different, like the title and the subtitle and whatever else. Pick any other options. See a preview of it. Be like, okay, I like that thumbnail. Click render it out, and then go grab that file so I can upload it for my thumbnail. Is that everything it needs to do? So this is that moment, this is like a design kind of a moment where before you actually start writing code for a thing, you want to carefully think through what's everything I need it to do, how do I want it to work? And based on that, like what are the elements, what are the application areas going to be? So in just a little bit more detail, let's think. So I kind of want like two major columns of this application. I want a column over here, which has got, in this column, I was going to have two rows. So there's going to be a table over here that's got all of my different brand profiles to pick from, and maybe some buttons like select all or whatever. Then I want a column, or sorry, a row over here, which has the preview image. Then on this side, I want a second column. And the main thing over here is going to be like a big settings box that adapts to whatever I have selected. And then probably I want to have a tiny box down here, which is like commands, you know, like render all, I don't know. And maybe some stuff like, probably I would separate the buttons to like save and load the settings. So maybe I would have like a little row up here that has buttons like save settings, load settings, something like that. And then I would have my big settings block. And then I would have my like render, like output kind of buttons down here. Do I need the thing to be able to give me any kind of feedback? Like what if it like has an error internally and it like wants to crash and I don't know what the error is? It'd be nice to have a place on the screen to print that. I mean, I could just have it do like a little pop-up window, but we could also have like a section that shows up at the top here. I don't think that's going to be a really normal part of the workflow, so I might just have it do like a pop-up window when it gets that, so I can read the error and then click OK. So that way I don't have to like complicate the stuff here. We have to think about like loading states or working states. You can imagine if I gave it like 50 of these things to do, and then I click the button, it could sit here and spin for like a minute. That's the other virtue of doing this. One of the other places I got here is I noticed as I keep running this generator, it keeps taking longer and longer, but sometimes I just want to tweak one. So if I have it configured in here, then I can just take the one that I want to regenerate and hit the button on that and only wait for that to happen, instead of having it automatically regenerate all the images every time. Which is also a good reason that it should remember the selection in here. Like it should remember which of these that you have checked on. So, okay. And do I want it to be like resizable? Probably so. I can either make it fixed size or I can make it resizable. I think there's a thing in Windows Forms called like a split view. So split view, I don't want it to be resizable at the top or bottom. I want these to be like fixed dimensions, and I want the middle one to take up the full available space. So that way I could like resize the window. Yeah, it's always nice if you can get that, keep that window resizing. Okay, so basically we want one split view that's going to go left to right and has a divider that I can drag to move it around. Then on the left, I want one split view that goes top to bottom, so I could drag that divider up and down. On the right, I don't want it to use the split view with drag handles. I just want to make like a standard table layout that's got like a chunk at the top, a chunk at the bottom, and the settings thing in the middle. All right. Last thing is kind of like a style choice. I kind of like, well, I don't know. We'll get there when we get there. So cool. Let's try to do that. Let's start trying to work on that. All right, where do I start? Oh no, I've done it. That's exactly what I talked about. So I accidentally double-clicked my app form thing, and now it created for me this app form.resax. I don't want that at all. Well, you know, it's one more thing we should do. I just moved around and changed a bunch of stuff. Let's check that into the GitHub really quick. Yeah, that's not to say. So, okay. Yeah, stuff like this right now that's a setting, like that could be like an actual selectable directory in the window. Okay, how do I want to proceed on this? Now let's do view code. So I want like split container. Represents control consisting of a movable bar that decides to contain a display area into two resizable panels. I think that's what I want. So we want vertical scroll direction. What would you call that? The orientation? Yeah. And this one always trolls me because like the controller element is oriented horizontally. That tells me nothing. Like when it says oriented horizontally, does that mean that the two things are horizontally separated and my bar is going to drag back and forth, but it's a vertical shaped bar? Or does horizontal mean that we're talking about the divider in the middle and we have two vertical sections, like one above the other one? I remember getting this wrong in another project, and I was like, and I went to look at it, and it's like, surely you could tell me that. But it just says oriented horizontally, which means like nothing to me. Now the other thing I think we need to do is Windows Forms apparently has this concept of docking. So like my whole window is one area that's got an internal size. So like if I drag it and move the window size around, it's gonna reform and reshape. In terms of laying out components, you can either lay them out like absolute coordinates. So you could say this is a box that has 300 pixels width and 500 pixels height. But if you do that, it's not going to respond to the resize. It's just going to be fixed. And if you make it too small, it's going to stretch off the screen and all that crap. So what you really want is for your component inside the window that's getting resized to fix its dimensions, to fit its dimensions to the thing that it's inside of. And they've got a concept for that, which is it doc? Yeah, okay. Not fill. So fill means that I want this thing to completely take up all the space of the parent container that's inside of, where the parent container here is the window. Let's punch it like that and see. See, I got it wrong. I picked horizontal, but now it wants to put this bar for me to move stuff around in the middle, like in the middle stretching across, which is not what I want. There is no way to know. They couldn't give me any helpful information. So the controller element is oriented vertically. So what they mean when they say, what they say when they mean vertically is that this bar is oriented vertically, even though the two things are being horizontally separated from each other. So great, brilliant work there. Now here's another question. Over here, do I want there to be an actual draggable bar between the table and the thing, the preview down here? Or do I just want it so that if you shrink this bar, it makes the preview take up the appropriate dimensions for this space? And then it calculates the size of the table from that. That would be a little bit weird, because then in order to get, like let's say you wanted to see more space on the table, you're going to have to squish it horizontally. But I feel like the user would have more control if we do make it a separate thing. And then what we'll do is if I drag this down and make the preview really small, then it'll just like shrink proportionally to fit the space that's in there. And then, so you have independent control. It's okay to shrink it really small, and that way you don't have to like stretch the table horizontally in order to get this bit to be small. So let's do that. Left, right layout. I call this. So like the top level object. There we can call this. Then we want another split container. So this time we still want it filled, because now this one is going to go inside the left-hand panel of the other one. So when we stretch that down, now it's got like a client area inside, and we want this control to fill up that whole left side area. This time we do want to pick horizontal, because it has to be the opposite of whatever this one is, even though they don't really make sense. And then we want... So panel 1, I assume, is the generic term. Yeah, it says it's either the left or the top panel, depending on the orientation. So panel 1, and add the left layout control to it. So let's see what that does. Okay. Something. Oh, well, I do have my thing here, but how come this gets invisible? I can only tell it's there by hovering over it. Maybe I have to indicate that's a draggable bar with some other kind of style. That's okay, we'll get there. And then the right layout, well, let's get some stuff into those two so I can actually see where they are. That's gonna annoy me. Now let's make a, probably start separating these into methods. Let's do, okay, so we set up the init layout. What's wrong with that? Hide to member. Oh, control already has in it. No, okay, I don't want to call it that. Whatever. I'm just gonna call it init. Okay. So inside the init, then I'll probably have like a. What do I want to call these sections of the application? This one's like a profile table. Init preview box. And how do I want to connect these? Maybe I want to tell it the container it should be inside of. So that way I can instruct it in the init how to actually, like, which of these things is going to contain it. Just here, so I've got a top layout with a left and right panel, and then I've got a left layout that's got a top and bottom panel. So I probably want to tell it, what is this subclass? Container splitter panel. So I don't really care that it's a splitter panel. Is splitter panel a subclass of panel? Maybe I want this thing to be panel and not just control. We can go check really quick. What is the splitter panel? What do you inherit from? Windows.forms.panel. Okay, so if I make this thing take in a panel, this init method take in a panel, then it will be able to accept a splitter panel as a subclass. That's what we want. Back here. Let's be explicit. So I'm gonna want to init profile table from panel 1 and init preview box. Actually, I want to do one more thing. Instead of defining this inside of these, because it's still kind of part of the top level organization, I want to put some kind of now what is that? It's called a panel group. There's like a thing in Windows Forms where you can like group stuff inside a nice box that has a little title. A panel group or a group panel. What the hell? That's so not helpful. Group controls, is it just called group? Group box? Group box control. Is that what I'm looking for? Yeah, like this. This group box, this little thing that's got like a little kind of a subtle border around it and it's got a title. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, so let's actually define the group boxes out here too, because that's kind of part of the layout. Like, you know, whatever my code is that sets up the table, it shouldn't really care that the thing that it's inside is a group box. Oh, no, let me check. Is that still extend panel? We have the class for it. Group box class. Ah, see, this one extends control, so it doesn't even extend panel. So if I want to be able to pass it a group box, you know what? I'm gonna have it do that inside though. So I'm gonna pass it the panel, and then each of these can make their own group box if they want it. I'm gonna make a group box. I want the group box to fill the whole thing. Give it a name. Text. Text associated with this control. Yeah, it's so helpful. I think it's text that we use to set the title. add it to the parent panel. Okay, so we're going to have it stretch to fill the space. Then let's do the same thing down here. Preview box, it's that. Preview. Also want it to fill the space that it's in, and then inside that, so that group box is always going to be exactly the dimensions of that portion of the window. But when we actually put the preview image inside it, we'll have that one kind of like shrink and center to fill the available space. And then we're going to add... add the preview box too. Alright, where does that get us? So now we've got brand profiles up here, and we've got a preview down there. That's cool. And that's going to help us in the sense that, well, I guess now if we go to move this thing, at least now we have some kind of visual indication where this draggable section is. It's going to be somewhere between these two, right? Okay, that's cool. So then on the other side, I don't want them to be draggable, but I want to have basically three... I think I can use a thing called like a table layout, table panel layout. And I can use that to make a single column with 3 rows, because I want my top row to be a fixed height, and I want my bottom row to be a fixed height. And then I want my the thing in the middle to stretch, because the thing in the middle is going to have my settings, and I'm probably going to give it a scroll bar, so if it gets small, see how these nicely like resize of the thing? I'm going to have to give it like a minimum size so you can't break the layout, because I don't want to give it there's no reason for this app to go to the trouble of giving like fully responsive layouts or whatever. Let's try to organize it like that. We'll give them each their own group boxes. Let's do like in it, what do I call that? The settings section. Let's finish laying that out over here. So that's the left layout. That's also good. This is not a split container. It's table panel, table layout panel. Okay. And then for the table layout panel, oh, that's right. This was weird. The table, well, what I can do is I can give each of its rows a panel, and then I can pass that panel to the appropriate init function. Yeah, I think I can do it like that. So we want this to fill for sure. This one doesn't have an orientation, but it has like a set of rows and columns. I think I have to do like and this, it was so weird the last time I messed with it. It's like you have to set the number of rows and columns as integers, but then you also have to like loop through and add the definitions that you want for stuff. And like intuitively, I would think you do one or the other. Like if you set the number of columns and then you go through and add like rows or whatever. If you set the number of rows and then loop through and add rows, but somehow it's like you have to keep it in sync manually. I was not 100% sure how it works, but let's try first without explicitly setting the number of rows and columns. Let's get yeah, there we go, row styles. I think I do have to set it explicitly. Alright, let's do those in groups. So it's going to have one column in this table layout. we're going to have one column style. And the column style is what are we using? A size type and an actual size number. This one is going to be, okay, so we got 3 to work with in here. Auto size means that it's going to take the size from whatever's inside it. So if the biggest element inside is like 200 pixels, then this whole column is going to be fixed to 200 pixel size. That's not what we want, because we want it to be responsive to this dragging that we're going to do. The second was absolute. I can just tell it a size number, so that, you know, I tell it like you're 200 pixels, and that's also not going to respond to this dragging that we want to do. And finally, we have a percent, which is the one that we want to use, which is like what percentage of the available space is this column going to take up? All right, in this case, the answer is 100%. We have a single column. We want it to always take the full width of this area as we resize it around. So I'm going to do that, and I believe you pass the number here as a percentage. Like as a, it has to be like times 100 of what you want. It would be more intuitive to me to be like 1.0, but I'm pretty sure it actually wants the number 100. I think it interprets 1.0 as like 1%. So that feels like a very arbitrary design choice, but maybe because it's called percent and they felt like it would be confusing if you made it the other one. No, they could have just not called it percent. They could have called it like ratio or fraction or something that implies a 0 to 1 option. But whatever, they did it the way that they did it. That's how it is. So we only want one column that's set out like that. Then we want 3 rows. We want to tell it that there's 3 rows. Row styles are defined the same way, except now we're talking vertically. We want, and so here we're going to make use of the other one. So for the top one, we want it to have auto size, because whatever panel, whatever content I put inside this top box, I want the table to first measure that, be like, oh, this needs 70 pixels. And also the third row, the bottom one, we want it to measure that and be like, oh, this one needs like 120 pixels. So when it does the layout pass, it'll come through here, it'll see my 2 auto size things, it'll measure this one, add those 2 sizes together, and be like, oh, the fixed elements in this table have a total height of 210 pixels, or whatever it is. And then the second layout pass will look at my percent columns, which is going to be the one in the middle, that says it wants 100% of the available space. And it's going to be, okay, well, the panel is 800 pixels tall and it needs 210, so that means it's going to be like, you know, 590 pixels are available for this thing in the middle. And as I drag it around, it's going to keep doing that layout calculation and stretching the one in the middle, but leaving the size of the ones on the top and the bottom. That's what I want it to do. So we can do, no, absolutely. I don't want to tell it from the layout what the size is going to be. I want it to measure the thing that goes inside to decide, but I want it to only take up as much space as needed for that thing inside. So auto size, I don't have to pass it a number, I don't think. So we want 1, it's auto size. Then we want 1, it's percent 100. Then we want another one that's auto size. So now we should have 1 column, 3 rows on this table. And the last thing I'm going to do, because, so now the other thing is like when you add stuff to this table layout thing, it was super weird. It's like, because most of these controls have a, you know, such and such dot controls dot add, but I was like, how do you put it in a certain place? We don't actually want that thing to go in here, but so you pass it the control, and then this particular one, see how it has this weird subclass table layout control collection? This particular one out of all of them has special like column and row integers for where you want to put this element. Which is counterintuitive for another way, because this method is called add, right? But you're not really adding, you're setting. Like you're you can't have like 6 different elements inside a column. I think it even specifies in the documentation you can only put one in a particular like row and column pair. It's only going to honor one element. So as long as you made a special collection, why didn't you just call it like set? I don't know. I don't understand it. I don't understand how they structured some of this old Windows Form stuff. But it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to do it the way that it works. So I'm going to actually make myself 3 panels. So I'm going to get around this to keep this layout code confined here and not concern whatever lays its content out with all of these shenanigans. Is I'm going to create 3 panel objects. The panel class is just the standard, like, you know, invisible. It has no background. It has a specific region that's kind of like a group for some other controls to go into. So I want to make 3 panel objects and set them correctly at these 3 rows that I want to work with. And then I'm going to pass those each to an init function that goes and sets up the stuff that's supposed to go in each of those panels. And those init functions are not going to have to know about where in the layout they are or that they're in some kind of crazy table. They're just going to know that they have a panel as a parent that they need to build their content into. And that should work out great. So let's call these, it's like the control. What are the names of these 3 areas? I could call them top, middle, and bottom. For the layout purposes, I guess I'll call them top, mid, and bottom. So top right panel, new panel. I have to do this pretty much everywhere. Actually, you know what? This might not be correct. This might mess up the size calculation when I want it to actually take the auto size from this thing. Because in the layout pass, basically, it's going to try to compute the layout of the table, and it's going to go and find an auto size column, and it's going to look inside at that first element, which is going to be a panel, and that panel is going to say that it gets its size from being docked inside the row. So the row is like, hey panel, what size do you want to be? And the panel's like, I don't know, man, what size do you want me to be? And it's just, I don't know exactly what it does in that case, but it doesn't get the right answer. It just makes it the wrong size. So probably this should not be doc_style.fill. In the worst case, this will have to be like have an absolute size set. You could at least fill left or right, but it definitely can't be a fill to like the top and the bottom. How do I do that? How do I tell it to just fill like left and right? I think the last time I did this, I had to actually not do auto size here. I had to give them explicit sizes. That's really gross, but I might, you know, I'm not even going to waste time pretending like I can't do that. I wasted so much time on this the last time I had to mess with it. I'm just going to give these fixed sizes. So for now, we're just going to be like absolute. So whatever, you're literally 100 pixels. Huh? Oh, we're missing them. Let's call it like 120. So you literally have 120 on the top, and then we're going to do that same one for the bottom. You literally have 120 on the bottom. Now I wonder, is there a way that I could like modify these after? I could like manually measure the size of the panel that I'm going to create. There's going to be an annoying thing that comes up later where I have to set the size of these rows if I'm doing an absolute. Like I would like it to just take its size from the content, but you know what? I might be being stupid. I actually might be able to get this to do what I want. Before I back that off, I'm going to leave these at auto size. Right. I'm worried that I'm going to waste a bunch of time on this again, but we're going to take the risk because I would like it to work this way. We're going to have this dock thing and say that we only want to dock it to, let's style dot left. So here, what we're telling it is this top right panel, we want it to fix its sides to the left and the right side of the available area, so it stretches with them. But then for its height, we want it to be auto size. Like that. Well, let me try to. I got down this rabbit hole before, and I really didn't like it. I might go back to using absolute sizes. Create a responsive layout, blah blah blah. Use combination of dock and anchor properties, or employ table layout panel. That is what I'm doing. Auto size property is generally used for control to resize based on its own content, correct? Not based on its container size changes, so it's typically false in this scenario. So basically the fact that I want it to stretch left and right means that auto size is wrong, because auto size is going to try to count up the width and set the width of this thing to it. So probably I don't want auto size. Okay. Docking order. Dock your first panel to left or right, and maintain its defined width. Dock a second panel left, right, or fixed width. And dock your main content to fill the remaining space in the oh, that's like if you want something over here and something over here and want it to stretch in the middle. Yeah, using table layout panel. That's what I want. Add table layout panel. Configure the columns. Yeah, I did that. Add panel, place your panel controls in each of the cells and set each of their individual dock properties to fill. The panels will then respect the proportional size. Yeah, how about that? Okay, totally useless. Okay. But the one important piece of information is I probably can't use dock and auto size. How do I want to do this then? Well, let's do it like this. Yeah, we're going to go back to absolute size up here. Right now I'm just going to make it. So, table layout panel is going to tell those two sections how much space they have. They're not going to auto size, they are going to totally fill. And then I'll look visually at whatever I lay out in there, and I will come up and adjust the height that's allocated to that area if I have to. That's what we're going to do. Probably inside it's going to have a panel that's like auto size or whatever. And I'll just make sure that it's actually going to fit. Okay, so enough of that. So we got a top right panel. A mid right panel. Oh, I need to actually do the add here. Top right panel is going to be column 0, row 0. Then we need, I hate this layout shit. And you'd be like, well, just use the form designer, just use the GUI to drag it around. Bro, it's so hard to get right that way. It's so hard to get right, and the code that comes out of it is so gross. What's going to happen if I change over and use the designer is that I'm going to go and I'm going to lay it out the way that I think it should be laid out, and I'm going to set the properties on each of the things that I think they need to be set, and then I'm going to run into exactly the same problem, except instead of knowing exactly what it's doing, I'm going to have to like imagine or go read its generated code to see what it decided to do. And if I want it to do something different, I'm like, oh, it's passing this parameter, not this parameter. I'm going to have to go back to the designer and fiddle with the settings of the thing. And when I fiddle with the settings, I'm going to go back and check the generated code, and it will not do it right. And I'm going to Google it and be like, how do you actually configure this? It's going to be like, oh, there's actually no way to do it. It just always does it this way. And I'm going to wish that I had just coded it, that I just coded the layout. So that's why we're coding the layout the first time. No, this is not what I want. right panel, right layout. Okay. Controls.add. Style.fill. Oh, I always mess this up. Oh, see, look, I was talking. I messed this up already. All right, so for here, the middle panel, we want that to be a column 0 and row 1. And this, here's another thing that bothers me. So, say I did just do add here. Like, my table thing has its own special type with its own special add method that's really a set. And it allows me to call it without specifying a column and a row. So, like, what does that do? Where does that add it? Does that implicitly add it to row 0, column 0? If I just did add on a bunch, or does it like count up? Like each time I do add, does it like skip to the next? Like, oh, add it to this column, add it to this column. I have no idea. It's not clear. Does it tell me? Adds the specified control to the collection. Brilliant. I want to be explicit where I set these things each time. So that's column 0, row 1. Then here. We want column 0, row 2. And here, since I called that one bottom, we'll use we'll actually spell out the word middle. And I have a top right panel, a middle right panel, and a bottom right panel. And they all stretch to fill the size of their content. And we're telling it the size of the top and bottom one, which we'll have to go and set whatever these numbers are appropriately later. So now, let's get a couple of layout, like init functions for those 3 panels. Let's get this like, oh, come on. So yeah, here we get back to what was I actually going to call those sections. So there's like, I guess the top one is like a config area, where you're like configuring the whole thing. And the bottom one is like an actions area. And the middle one is like a profile settings area, or like a render settings area. Let me just call it settings, I guess. So we're gonna say private void init, or init config, maybe? Init config box. I'm actually going to do the actions box first because the settings one is probably going to be huge, and I kind of like to have them go in order so you can see the simple ones and then see the big nasty one. Actions box. And then that. So init config, init actions, init settings. And each of these we can have make a group inside the thing. So I'm just going to paste this that I already had. So set up a preview box. This is a config box. It says configuration. Then here we're going to have one that's the actions box. It says actions at the top. And then over here, we're going to have one called the settings box. Profile render settings. Okay. Now we're just going to call through each of these. So we call it on the 2 left ones. Also, this is, now that I called all these other ones box, really, we're just going to call this the profiles box. And then the fact that it has a table in it is irrelevant. Like, you know, that's just, the table is what's inside the profiles box. Now I can do config box, and we're gonna pass it the init config box into the top right panel, and init the settings box into the middle right panel. And we're gonna init the actions box into the right panel. Okay, and that should go. Let's stick all the stuff in now. Let's see what that does. Nope, I don't see it. What happened there? Did I forget to add something? I did forget to add something. I went to all this trouble to define this table, and then I never actually put the table inside the layout. So this is all the crap defining the right layout, and at the end I want to actually do what? No? Oh yeah, I have to add it to the top layout is the thing. I'm gonna do that right here. Top layout panel 2, so that's the panel on the right side. Add the right layout. This one bothers me for the same reason. So panel 2 has a controls.add, which makes you think you can add multiple controls to it. But I'm pretty sure the split panel requires that you only have one thing. So they should just call that set also. To stop you from having to Google it every 5 minutes. Hey, there we go. So now we have a layout here. We're kind of a main app, so we can resize these two sections. We've got a brand profile section up here. It's going to have our table. We've got a preview section down here. It's going to show you the image you're working on. We're going to have configuration up here for, like, I don't know what paths you want to load from or anything like that. We're going to have an actions down here. And then here's also, we could have like our save settings button, or like load settings from file or anything like that. I could probably let you like save to multiple files and load from multiple files if you had different configs. And then in the profile render settings, this is going to be the one that if I click an item in the table over here, we want it to change all these settings to be appropriate for that type, and let me type in like title, name, video number, you know, like maybe pick paths to other image files that I want to use, anything like that. Okay, so far so good. I'm going to take a quick break, and then we will get back to that and do a little bit more of it. And we're back. So, alright, what's a good next step to take with this thing? Probably the very first thing, because it drives everything else, is to get something going in this brand profiles box. So I think in C# the table class is called a data grid view. And so we can create one of those. Do I want like a command section of that? So it's gonna have the table for sure, but then does it need like connect all? Oh, here's another interesting question. Can I put checkboxes in the cells in a data grid view? Because the important thing here, I'm gonna have a list of profiles and I want each one to have a checkbox that I can turn on or off individually, and I want to be able to select them irrespective of which ones are checkboxed. Let's check into that. And a checkbox, you can use data grid view checkbox column class. Checkbox column name, header text, data view grid columns.add. Okay, so that's not how I expected to do it. Fortunately, this is what I want to do. I want to have one column of checkboxes. Well, I guess I have to loop through and add a column for each different thing that I want to display in there. Okay, well that's a good answer. So we can do that. I know we can make it selectable and stuff like that because I've done that recently. What else? Do we want to have like a select all, deselect all? Maybe like a refresh button. If I had gone and like changed the JSON or changed the file names, I would want a button to get it to like reload this table. So, all right, let's give ourselves like a row at the bottom, because right here, you're gonna have like the column headers. And then at the bottom, we're gonna have nothing. It's just gonna be the end of the table. So maybe the bottom is a natural place to put the buttons so that they don't conflict with the column headers. They're gonna be a little bit close to this thing, but it's probably all right. And then we'll configure some other stuff off. We don't want it, by default, it wants to make it so you can edit the cells, and it wants to make it so that you can add rows and like all this different crap, which we don't really want, because for us, the table that's going to be here is just the set of stuff that's actually defined in the files. It's going to be the stuff in that profiles folder. This profiles folder here. Basically, for each file in here, I think there's going to be one row in this table. And then it might try to organize them by brand type or something like that. In fact, maybe that would be like another shortcut button that I could put here, because like if I picked one that's a banner, maybe I'd have a button that's like select all of type, and if I click that, it'll put a checkbox on all the banner type ones. Because I don't want it to be like if there's 70 things and I have to go and like manually pick like 10 of them. I'd love it if there's some kind of shortcut, like maybe I select an item, and then maybe like when I select it, it'll update the button text to be like select all banner type or whatever. And that'll reset the selection on the side to all the banner type ones. That might be cool. Okay, let's proceed like that. So first things first, because we know that we need a group, or because we know that we want some buttons at the bottom, that means we can't add our stuff directly into this layout. That means we're going to need a thing inside here. So inside the group box, I'm going to use another one of those table panel layouts. Technically, there's a thing in here called like a stacked layout, which is maybe I'm thinking of Maui. I don't remember. There's some kind of layout that you tell it just like a direction, and you want like a row of elements, and you put each element. When I tried to use it before, it was not doing what I expected. It was not calculating its size well, even though it's simpler to use. So I'm just going to cut to the chase and use another one of those table layouts. That seems to be, I can wrap my head around the way that that one actually runs its layout code. So let's get table layout panel. So I definitely want that to be a fill. That we want that to take up all the space inside the group box. We're actually going to want so we want this to be added there. Now we've got to do our columns themselves again. I'm just going to call this table. I'm sick of typing that over and over and over. Column count is 1. And remember, this is not the table that we're defining. This is, the table is in like the grid of rows and stuff. This is a meta element that's going to organize. A table is going to go in the first row, and then some buttons are going to go in the second row. That's what we're trying to organize at this layout. Let's type dot. So we want this one to be 100% wide. That's all we need. And then row count is 2. So our top one is going to be, it's going to take up all available space for the table. And we're going to have a row under that. And here's, we've run into that same game again that I had so much headache with in a previous time, about trying to get the table layout to work well with an auto size. It just doesn't. The table wants to be in control of what the size of all the elements are going to be. If you have something inside the table that you want to take its size from, you just can't. You have to set that up separately. Or at least I spent like 6 hours trying to do that on a project a couple of weeks ago, and I could not get it to work. So, so we're not even gonna mess with it. So here, I'm gonna use absolute, and for now, I'm just gonna give it a made-up size. We'll adjust that later when we know how big the buttons are gonna be. We'll adjust that size down. Okay, so now we got our column and our row styles. So then we want some kind of, probably the raw element for this top one is going to be the actual data grid view itself. We don't need like a container panel. But for the bottom one, for our actions, we probably want a panel for all of our buttons to go inside of. Because like I said, I think we can only put one actual control inside the thing. So we'll just make a general panel for that. We'll make this is going to be the second one. I want to add the buttons panel at column 0, row 1. So this is going to be the second row, the row at the bottom. We want the buttons panel, obviously, to fill up all the space in that row. And then here we'll like loop through and add the buttons. For now, I'm just going to do one for example. Oh. Text, probably. Example button. And then I don't want it to fill. I do want it to be like auto size, which I think it is by default. I don't think it's going to default to trying to stretch to fill the whole available area. And we'll just add that to the yeah, actually the thing inside there, it might I might end up needing to use like another element that actually arranges. God, there's so many fucking layers of this thing. So okay, I don't actually want this to be a panel. I want this inside of that table to actually be another table layout for each one. I wish I could just use the simpler one that like stacks them onto the side. But I remember that it doesn't work right. So I think we actually are going to use another table layout, which means that this layout table is not specific enough. Well, this could be top table. Then instead of buttons panel, we actually want yeah, I want docstyle.fill because it's going to fill up that whole second row of the top table. And what do you want? I'll do that after, but first. So then probably do like a list of button definitions for each one that we do. We're going to want to add a column. What would be a nice general way to do that? So I got this thing. So for the buttons table, this is going to be a row that stretches out to the side. So we want yeah, so we want, here we set row count equals 1, row styles dot add. This one I guess is just going to stretch. It's going to be 100%. So it's going to take up whatever's inside of it. Then here we're going to do each of the buttons as a cell. So for each button, and I could actually like define these more in terms of data, but that might get kind of annoying. Where like each button is just got like a label and a callback and maybe a function to determine whether it's enabled. That's a little bit annoying. This is very cumbersome to lay out in this code, and people will be like, why didn't you use the designer view? Trust me, it's better this way. It's better to do it this way. You're going to have a better time. Because for a simple thing, you go and start to lay it out a little bit simply in the designer view, and you're like, oh, this is working great. But when your form gets really big and complicated, you're going to wish that you had full control over how the code executes to actually set it up. Or at least I do. So here for the column count, let's start num calls equals 0. And we'll just try to do little code groups for each button that we add. Also, another thing I want to do is I might have other parts of the application that want to set these buttons, like make them visible or invisible. So I'm actually going to capture the button pointers as class properties up here. So like what's one that I know I'm going to need, like a refresh profiles button. Almost like another one we're going to do like actually, we could probably have one select all button, and when you have nothing selected, then Or when you have something selected, then it'll change to a deselect all. Yeah, let's do that. Let's just call this select all profiles button. Then kind of unwieldy name. So we have like a select all profiles of type button, and that would be grayed out if you don't have something selected. But if you do have something selected and you click this button, then it's going to reset your selection to just the ones of that particular type. Yeah, let's start with those. I can always add more later. So that's a refresh profiles button. I'm actually gonna like namespace these. We're gonna change them to profiles refresh button. We're gonna have a select all button, and then profiles select type button. Okay. So now all of those things that belong to this profiles area of the application are going to be namespaced. We could put it into a whole separate panel class for this one that maintains its own state internally. Then you have to have stuff that has like references to each of the different panels and calls through multiple layers. I don't think the form's going to get so complicated that we really need like a bunch of other files. Okay, so we start with 0 columns. Now here's a question. Do we want these buttons to stack up from left to right or from right to left? I kind of want them to go, like basically that's going to determine where we want our empty space. The code's a little bit simpler. If we have our big empty space at the beginning, and then all the action buttons are going to be kind of lined up at the, you know what, actually I want them separated. I probably want the refresh button on one side by itself, because that's the most common one to click, and then I'll put your select actions on the other side. So we'll do like maybe like the refresh could be over on the right side. So yeah, we'll stack up our actions on the left, you know, like action, action, and then empty space, and then refresh on the right. So, okay, let's do so each time we do one of these buttons, we need to add a column. Column styles, add I don't want to do this. This one. These can be auto-sized because I think when I put a button content directly inside each of these cells, that should just report its actual auto-size to the table layout thing, because it's not like a panel underneath it that's going to try to compute its thing. That might work. That might work, or I might have to go back to like manually sizing them. I hope I don't have to go back to manually sizing them. So we want an auto-size column, and we're gonna get so we said like our action button, so let's get like select all first. Button. And this might have its text automatically updated later to be like deselect all instead. And then we're gonna do let's start that to 0, and for each group that we do here, we're gonna do controls.add at profile select all button. And it's always going to be column. No, column is what's going to change. We're going to get it at numcalls plus plus. So after we use it, we want to increase the numcalls value. We'll do that. And the row is always going to be 0. Let's call this next column. Okay, so this plus plus is going to increment it after we use it. Now it's going to go through here and set it at 0, column 0, and then add this automatically to column 1. And the reason I want them chained together like that is because if I end up with a couple sections like this that define buttons, I want to be able to rearrange them, and I want it to automatically do the columns correctly. So we got like a select all button. Now let's put these separately. So let's have it add the column style. So first we define the button, then we do both of the table columns things. Okay. So let's do a section of code like that again. This time it's going to be the profiles type button. I'm just going to call it select type. I'll probably have code that dynamically, like if you have a what would you call it? If you have like a banner type selected, then this will be like select all banner or something like that. And because we did next call plus plus, that automatically works. Then we're going to want a spacer to separate it from the buttons on the right. So the spacer is going to want to take up all available space that's not used by the actual buttons. And we're not even going to set a control for it, but we are going to do upgrade the next column number. And then at the end for the refresh button, we're going to get another group like this, which is going to be profiles refresh button, right? I'm just going to say like refresh. It's going to be auto size. It's going to put it at the next column after that. Okay. And then finally at the end, we can tell it column count equals next column. Well, that's going to work, right? It starts at 0. So after we add the select all button, next column is 1. After we add this, next column is 2. We add the spacer, next column is 3. We add the refresh button, next column is 4. So at the end, column count, we have 4 columns. So that works. Okay, cool. So there's our thing for the buttons. And we're also going to have to add like click listeners and some other stuff on these. We'll set it like this for now. Okay. I might actually end up with like a utility function to set up a button the way that I want. This might end up annoying me quite a lot. Yeah, because I don't really want to have, in programming, if you're a programmer or if you're a new programmer, what you don't want to have a lot of is big duplicated sections of code. Like let's say for whatever reason it was going to take me 20 lines of careful code to add a button here. And that 20 lines is going to be substantively the same, like I'm setting the same stuff or similar stuff across like 10 different buttons that are going to be here. What you don't want is 10 copies of your 20 lines of code. And there's a couple of reasons for that. This is a principle that programmers use called dry don't repeat yourself, DRY. There's a couple of reasons for it. The first most obvious reason is code bloat. So if you've got pretty much 20 of the same lines that you could make into a single function, you could define it one place and then call it like 10 different times. And that makes your code smaller, which makes it easier to find what you need and easier to reason about. That's the lesser of the reasons that this is an important principle. The greater reason that that's an important principle is because if you have a specific set of rules that do the thing, and say it takes you 20 lines to define the rules, and then you make 10 copies of it, then now imagine that later you have to change the rules. You're like, oh, actually all the buttons in the application need to have this flag enabled. Now you have to go and add that line of code to update the button in like 10 different places that you've copy pasted this. Maybe if you're lucky, all your copy pastes are in a row and you can just go down the row and do it, but you might copy paste this code into all different parts and corners of your application, into different classes across different files and namespaces. Like you could put that copied code everywhere, and It sounds bad, but you see this a lot in professional programming. Like, somebody needs to add a new button in this page. They're like, how do I do that? They go to another page that has a similar button. They copy a big chunk of code. They paste it into the new place that they want their button, and they tweak a couple of things, and they're like, great, I'm done. Then the next time somebody has to change something general about how all the buttons in your application work, you have to find every place that you've copy-pasted that code to make the equivalent change. Commonly, you don't find every place, and then what you end up is some of the buttons in the application have this new style or feature, and a couple random scattered ones throughout the application don't do it. And it looks bad, it's confusing to users, it's hard to keep track of. So the way you handle that is as soon as you realize that you're writing a substantial chunk of similar code over and over again, you consolidate it into a function that takes in whatever changes as parameters, and you call that function each place you need to do your thing, like to define a button. Then when you want to change the way all the buttons through the application work, you just go and modify that function, and they all get changed. They all call through that same piece of code. And if you only want to modify how some of the buttons work, then you cause your method to take in a new parameter. Yeah, get up. Hey, there you go. You got a, I don't know if you guys can see that I've got a cat. Oh, Miss Jade. Alright, let's get back to what we're doing. So anyway, that's my little rant about don't repeat yourself. This is on the line. If it really only stays like 4 or 5 lines, and they're all going to be exactly in one column next to each other, then I might not want to confuse the code flow by going and putting them somewhere else. But if it starts to get much larger than this, then I'm going to consolidate this into a function that does all my button setup stuff and just call that everywhere. And that's the reasons why. Okay, where did we get to? So we got a top table that makes a big chunk and a little strip at the bottom. Then we got a buttons table, which makes a strip of all the buttons, and then we go through and we add all the buttons to it. I think that should be enough. Okay, so we don't need to do this anymore. Excuse me. I think that should be enough to actually get these buttons to appear. Let's see what's going to happen. Sort of. We got one button to appear. How come we only got one? There's a couple of things I don't like going on here. One, oh, it's okay. So the reason it's positioned up here is probably because I told this thing it has an absolute height of like 80 for this lower one, which I'm going to have to adjust down. What is this, Windows XP style? What was the thing that it said to use? I was setting it up. Oh, come on. Enable visual styles? What does that actually do? Enables visual styles for the application. Is there a type of styles that are not visual? What does that mean? Okay, it didn't change anything anyway. I don't know. I guess we're just gonna have Windows XP buttons. I don't feel like messing with it. So let's go back to our code here. So why didn't this work? What are we doing wrong? Next column plus plus. So we're stepping through, we're doing a select all, select type, refresh. How come we only actually got one of these showing up? Oh, a cat's walking next to the ring light. Well, if the lighting totally messes up, then you're gonna know it's because a cat knocked it over. Why did this button? Oh, it's because see, this is exactly what I was talking about, the don't repeat yourself. I copied these similar blocks of code, and now I forgot to update one of the things that goes in each of the blocks of code. So I'm just putting the same button in each position, and that's why it ended up at the end, because it can't be in multiple positions. So as soon as I add a button in one place, it removes that button from the other places that it was. So I need to have this one, and the refresh button needs to be the last one. So that's probably the, yeah, here we go. So this is what we expected to see, right? So now we've got select all and select type on one side, and then we got refresh on the other side. I could style those and make them look nicer, but it doesn't really matter. But now they're taking up too much space, like too much vertical space. And that's where, again, this is where I wish that I could get this thing to just take well, you know what, maybe in here I could define it to be like an auto-sized column, but then here, the buttons table, I'm probably gonna have to give it an explicit height. Like, what does it do right now if I just leave these like this? And if I leave the row style to be 100%? Because it doesn't know what to do. Okay, I just made it like that. This row style, so I'm going to leave the row style to be 100%, but I'm going to explicitly tell it, well, here we go again, because if I tell it its height, but I also tell it dock style is fill, no, I can't do this. I can't have dock style fill, and also, so we have to define it, we just have to define it up here as an absolute size. It was just too large. 80 was too large. That's closer to the bottom. I still feel like we got a little bit extra. Let's go like 35. Alright, that's probably pretty good. So now I got these buttons kind of lined up at the bottom. And the next thing is we're going to put our actual data grid of the profile things up here. Now, should I have some kind of like default size for this that's better? Because it keeps starting over here. And really, I want it to be more like these settings are over here and the table's over here. So it might be too big for the table. Might be too big for the profile. You see how these are nicely following our layout though? That's why we do all the dock stuff everywhere. Really, that's why we're doing all this stuff in code, is because it might be easy to visually define this thing for a specific size, but like as soon as you have to be able to like stretch it around and make sure it keeps its shape and everything, then you want to know exactly how each part of the layout is defined. Okay, you want to know the rules by which they're going to adapt to a new size and have direct control over those rules. So let's see, let's try to add the, let's set a default size first. Okay. Probably this is too large for the whole shape of the application. What if I made this like 800 by 640 is 3 by 4. What is what's the aspect ratio? Oh, that's not helpful. Okay, let's get that. So that's the height, the width. If I multiply that by a different width, then I'm gonna get the new height that it should be. So if my different width was like 800 pixels, it'd be 800 by 450. I feel like I wanted the width to be 640. I need to do it the other way. 1280 divided by 720 is like this, and then I want to multiply that by the height. So I want it to be 640 tall. 1137 doesn't seem right. Maybe 640 is like not a nice size to do this. I don't know. I was thinking about making it 640 tall. What about like 600? 1066. Maybe I just want like 600 or like 1000 by 600. This is just a default size because they can resize it. Comes up about like this. That's probably closer to what we need. Then I want this one to default to I think I can tell it in code, like, to set this splitter position. It's probably over here. Out of my 1,000 pixels, I want maybe like 400 of them over here and like 600 of them over here by default again. So when I set up the splitter, the top layout, after I add the stuff to it, or before, I should be able to do it first. Splitter distance. So I think, yeah, it gets us out to the location of the splitter in pixels from either the left or the top edge. So this one's left and right split. So I want this to be like 600-ish. Whoa, that's way too big. Oh, why did it become that? I don't get it. It shouldn't be that big. Maybe it's because I added the stuff afterwards. So maybe what I need to do is add all the stuff, and then down here I can do my default sizing and be like top layout. You know what? Now I'm using top to mean like vertically on top. It's probably more appropriate to call this the main layout, or even to be more consistent, the app layout. So we set that to 600. There we go, that's what I expected. So now we get 600 over here and whatever's left over here. Then for the table in the preview, I probably want those to be like about 50-50 by default. So if we start with 600, and that means like 300 splitter distance. Probably, well, right layout, what's wrong with that? The right layout is the table one, that's the left layout. Left layout is the other splitter one. Okay, 300, let's make the preview a little bit bigger. Let's make it like, alright, dog's cool. So we'll have a table that goes up here, we'll have a preview that pops up here, so we get like a nice big detailed one. Then, yeah, let's just go ahead and start adding that table. I guess I'll do a little git commit to be like, that's not a great commit message, but not like here. Okay, so now we've done a bunch in this profiles box already. I think I'm going to split these sections into functions. Net profiles box. So let's do net profiles buttons. I want to give that a parent thing also. Might do the same trick I did before. So we have init profiles buttons, and then we can also have each of these take a parent panel. Okay. So this button stuff that I was doing, really all of this, all the way from all this crazy shit is going to go in our init profiles buttons. And then instead of top table, it's going to be panels.control. And then I just need to make it so okay, here after I've done the layout, no, I don't. I'm gonna do a buttons panel. It has that row 1. And that's really the second one, so now we can also do the table panel. Yeah. And then I can set up those 2 panels to go into this one. So we got a profiles box. Profiles table is confusing. We'll call this profiles layout again. So then we can call init profiles table. It's going to get called first with the table panel, and that one's going to get called next. Okay, so this one we'll just define the buttons first, and then after that we've got a nice fresh function to define our data grid crap, or it's not like lost in the middle of a bunch of other instructions. Okay, it still works. So without further ado, let's try to get this table. On this one, I'm definitely gonna make a thing up here. So profiles table, because like later, like when we load the stuff or whatever, we're gonna have a function that goes and scans the directory for all the files and parses them and loads them into this table. So when we do that, down at the bottom, what did it say? Let's do the fucking doc also. Okay, so it's going to fill its parent controller or parent container. Cool. So we got a thing. Well, let's see what that does just by default. A standard out of the box data grid. Okay, shows nothing. Great. Because I probably have to define some columns in it. Now, what are the columns that we actually have? I think columns view data grid view column. Nah, that's annoying to write. Got another cat on the desk. Well, what are you doing? Get down from there. Give me a second. How about you don't come and knock all this stuff down? Got a little mischief maker here. He's trying to run up there and wreck all my stuff while I film. It's not very cool. It's not very cool, bro. Why don't you take a break? He's going right back up there. I'm worried he's gonna jump up there and knock all this shit down. I can literally hear it happen. Give me a second, you guys. Where were we? Okay, so we're gonna add column. One of the things that we specify in here. So text, header text, 2 sets the cap. Okay. What columns do I actually want in here? So a profile has got probably the file name that it's in. So we have like a file column, and then it's got a name column, which might be the value, like whatever's in the name value inside the JSON. And it's got a type, which is like what brand type it is. And then, does it have anything else? Might have other stuff later, but probably file, name, type is probably enough to start. Probably put name first, like name, and then type, and then file, name, then the file and the type. Yeah, name is the main thing that's supposed to identify it. So we'll start with that. Then let's also put one. Oh, one is selected, right? We wanted that special. That's why we looked up how to do the checkbox column, right? Name of the column. Select item. Width. Okay, we've got a couple of different things we might want to put in there. Okay. Text equals name. Equals 100. What's the show here? Yeah, read only we probably want. Oh, and fill weight. Why do you need the width and the fill weight? Okay, let's make it read only. Okay, so that's our name column. So actually the very first one we want is the selected column, the checkboxes. I want those to be on the side. And here, this is going to be, what do I call it? Data grid view checkbox column. Is that a real thing? Okay, it is a real thing. This is name. Selected. I might actually leave this without a header text because it's going to be obvious. It's just a checkbox, and that way I can make it smaller without stretching it out. This one is not read only. Okay, so we got our name column, name, header text name, width, okay. Then we're gonna have what do we say, like a file, or yeah, let's do that. Let's make that 100. Read only is true. Then we can make I'm gonna call this type. And then maybe I'll just give it one that's like oh, you know, I can check the colors. What's going on over there? Oh, okay, whatever. Just stop, dude. Yeah, like the, what do I call it? Oh, like the theme. let's go on that. So let's give it a type column. Let's give it a theme column. So that's the one that's going to be like YouTube, Twitter, X, whatever. Banner and type is going to be like banner, like whatever. Oh my god. I need to get the spray bomb. I swear he's gonna knock stuff down. Theme column. Alright, give me a sec. Okay, that problem is probably far from over, but we're just gonna continue. Where do we get to? Okay, so we got a selected column, we got the name of the profile, we got yeah, probably name, type, and theme are the important, and file can be at the end. Well, okay. The file can be at the end, and all right, that's probably enough for now. So got a selected checkbox column, then we got a name, profile, theme, and file. Or name, type, theme, file. Okay, that's probably good to start. So what does it do if I just do it like that? Oh, get an exception. Column cannot be added because its cell type property is null. What the hell is cell type? Oh, it wants to. Okay. Each of these type of string, it wants literally like a data type. I forgot. Each of the cells in this table want to be associated to like an actual like object or value or something. I didn't realize that it's going to literally force me to specify this. Cannot be assigned to its read only. What the hell? What is the... the correct way to add? Programmatically adding new columns. That. Columns.add, new column name, and text. Wait, that's all you're supposed to do? And then I go and modify the properties of the thing afterward? What the hell? Alright, let's try to approach this differently. Well then, if it's like that, then how do I add the data grid view, whatever? Maybe I have to do that one specially. Or are there different types? Could I add these like string column? Data grid view column. Derived. Button column, checkbox column, combo box column. More, yeah, more. How many of them are there? Link text box column. Maybe those are the ones that I use. So basically, the problem is that the actual data grid view column, you're supposed to have like a specific subclass of it, I guess. So I guess these are text box columns. I guess that's what's supposed to happen. I might end up making a utility function to add these because there's not really any reason to like specify all this complicated stuff over and over. Oh, there we go. All right, so you are supposed to do it that way. Okay, well there we go. We got a checkbox in here. Now there's several other things I need to configure about this table. One is that I don't want it to have this thing over here. Two is that I don't want... Actually, I don't mind if these are sortable. That's fine. Three, I want to do whole row select. There's like multiple things that I have to configure about it. But we're off to a good start. And then of course I wanted to consume the whole width, which I probably get by having one, which I guess is going to be the file as the last one. Minimum width, divider width, God, there's the thing. How do you do the percent width on it? Auto size columns mode to fill. Auto size columns mode. Oh my god. Fill weight. So if I just give it a fill weight, does it default to fill, or do I still have to tell it the fill thing? Maybe I want to define all these in fill weights anyway, instead of giving them. Yeah, let's do that. Let's just give them. So here, 10 for the checkbox column, and then we'll give it like 100 everywhere else. I'm going to replace the widths, I guess. Probably want a minimum. Like 30 at least. And a fill weight of 10. So let's do that for each one. And width, probably not smaller than 100. And a fill weight of 100. So that's probably how I want the other ones to be. Like that. Like that. Like that. that do anything by default, or do I have to set on the like fill mode? I have to set on the fill mode because it's still got this gap over here, which we don't want. How do we turn on? There's a whole thing about it over here. These gigantic column names, or gigantic property names, and like type names and everything. This is auto size columns mode. Okay. There we go. Now it's filling. So that's important because now if we stretch it, it should actually, okay, so it honors the minimum sizes and it gives us a scroll bar. That's cool. But when we get above that, if we make the window really huge, or like full screen, then now it's still actually allocating space to each of these things. That's cool. Just, oh my god, you can resize columns? What the? We need to turn that off. I'm gonna have to look these things up one by one, like how to make each of these adjustments to the table. Excuse me. That's really annoying. I think I might remember a few of them. Okay, so we want the auto size mode. We want allow user to add rows is false. I think allow user to add rows is what gives us this thing. Yeah, this one over at the side. So now I don't have to worry about that. Although it still has like the initial header. Wow, I can figure out how to turn that off. Let's give us like a default row. This is just for testing. Rows.add. So we can either give it a row object, or add a number of rows, or give it a list of object values. Okay. So for our rows, we've got selected, name, type, theme, file. So selected is going to be true. Name is going to be test. Theme, or sorry, name, type is going to be banner, for example. Theme is going to be YouTube, and the file is going to be test YouTube banner.json. Okay. So if when we're just we're only inserting that here just so we can see what we're doing. Okay, so we got like a test row in here. Cool. Well, so now my default size, it's or my minimum size, it's already like stretched or kind of going off. It's probably not what we want. Probably the type and theme columns can be smaller. The type only needs a minimum size 50, and theme only needs a minimum size 50. And these can be filled at like 50 fill weight. And then the file, well, let's see. Yeah, so now file and name get most of the space. Yeah, all right, so that shrinks them up a little bit. That's cool. Cool. All right, so we still have this thing over here, which I don't want. It does select the whole row, but I don't want individual rows to be selected. So let's try to get that next. So user can't add rows. Allow user to delete rows, also false. Does that make it go away? No, still hasn't. Let's do the selection mode. Selection mode. Okay, yeah, full row select I think is what I want, right? Yeah, so we have a whole row selected. And it's still, why is it trying to select the column? You'd think it would know that if I want full row select, then I don't want it to select a column. My user to select. Okay. I got a bunch of allow user to. So add rows, no. Delete rows, no. Order columns is fine. Resize columns, no. Resize rows is no. I mean, I guess I could let them. Well, I don't want them to resize the columns like vertically. Wow. I guess I leave the ability for them to do columns. So rows should be the thing that was allowing me to. Yeah, this no, it still lets me do it. It shouldn't be right. This I'm okay with. That if somebody really wanted to come and mess with this, that's fine. Or if I wanted to, because I'm going to be using this. What is it? Is that part of resize columns? Or is it something about the headers? Auto resize column headers height. Column headers height. Column headers height size mode. Is that it? Disable resizing. Great. So everything else you just say don't allow user to do this, but for the column's height you have to set a special resize mode. Okay, great. So that worked. Now we can't resize this, but we still can resize this. And we can't stretch the rows. That's good. Now I still need to figure out how to get rid of this thing over here. That one could be smaller. Maybe I can give it a maximum size. Hold on, what am I doing? Use table row count up to top. Okay. And selected. I'll give it a minimum width. I can't give it a maximum width. Will it honor a default width? Okay, it does do that. That's a little bit small. So maybe 24. Okay, yeah, that's fine. So that's a nice amount of space for the checkbox. I have to click actually on the checkbox. Now, what is that? Is that allow user to edit rows? Or is there like edit mode? There's so many different. Editing control. Edit mode. Gets or sets for how to begin editing a cell. Edit on enter, edit on keystroke. Okay, how do you want to do it? Really, I want to prevent table editing. Well, I already made the things read only, so that's not the problem. I want them to be able to edit the checkbox and nothing else. How do I, so that's not the problem. I'm gonna have to ask the internet. Remove that automatic row. Automatic row is called the row header. Row header is visible as false. Okay. I don't want the row headers. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So now we're getting closer to, no, I still don't like, why is it, so like a column select? Prevent from selecting a column. Just handle the controls cell enter event and redirect the selection to an adjacent selectable cell. Then a read only prevents editing, not selection. Why do they do this? Why do they make it so that disable user to order? I know how to. I don't want to stop them from ordering it. That's fine. Completely disable any selection and set current cell equals null when a user changes row or cell. Prevent. Alright. Let's set our modes first. Okay, so we got a couple of different modes. We got a thing. We're setting the visible to false. Then we got allow user twos. That almost works. I just wish you configure the properties or check the row index. Selection mode property. Direct way, control by changing it. Yeah, it sets a full row selector cell, so yeah, I already did that. Check the row index. I'll like override it. Disable column sorting. Oh, so basically, as soon as you allow column sorting, that means it wants to do the thing. What if I just set the style? To set the selection mode, define selected back color and selected fore color in the column's default cell style. New selection, selected cell style, selected cell style dot back color. Default cell style. I think I could just set it on there. Alright, let's try this. I'm gonna have to get the column object. You know, that's almost too annoying to mess with. It's just distracting. What I'm trying to do is when it comes up here, you see how like if I clicked on any of these columns, it wants to highlight the thing that I clicked on, and there's not really a purpose for that. I can order it, I can click it to order it, that's fine. And I would get it if that happened when you click the column, but why does it happen when you click the cell? Oh, you know what? I think I'm not going to mess with that for now. And so, the juice is not worth the squeeze. Just need to keep moving. I'm probably not going to do too much more of it right now. Maybe I will try to get this thing to actually load up the files and put them in here that we have. And then we'll call that good for the stream today. Which we had a function to do that, but so now this app form is like the main controller of our application, and we're going to probably give it when we initialize this thing, this is all the layout stuff. I'm actually going to change this to be, oh no, I'm just creating here. First of all, these two things can go in here. I'm going to call this, is that going to mess up anything? Doesn't conflict? Okay. So give ourselves a init form before that we're going to do. I'm going to create a new profile manager. Then after all our inits, we probably want a function down here. Say, no, I don't want that. Just want load profiles. So we're going to use load profiles. So this is our function that we had already defined, if you recall. So it's going to go through and load the JSON files. We've been using that last time, and that should give us a list of profile objects. And before we were just looping over that to call render on each one. But now what we're going to want to do is so after it loads, we want to clear the rows in the table, and then probably want for each profile, we want to add a row. So selected by default is going to be false. And when we did name, profile.name, I'm probably going to have to hang on to a couple other things in that profile object. Okay, name, and the type, type, right? Except we want the string name of the type, so we want like get the name of profile type. For some reason that thinks it can return null. Then the theme, I'm actually going to give the thing a thing. File name. Okay. So I have to go and add those two things to the actual profile class. That was in our brand profile, so we already got name. So we got the colors object, which we want. Type. Should give it a theme. So that's going to be like the name of the color palette in practical terms. Then colors is going to be the actual, like, what we looked up the thing. Oh, and then we also wanted to have, we wanted to remember the name of the file that it came from. So then in that profile manager, which should not really be here, probably this is going to move to the brand folder. In the profile manager, this is where we parse it, but then in the end we create one. We should have all the information we need here already. So we said name, we moved type after the name. The order of these doesn't actually matter, but we're just going to try to keep it kind of in sync. A name, a type, a theme equals, what was the name of the color profile that we loaded? JSON.colors. And then the file name is going to be, when we do parse profile, we hand it the object that already came in. We're probably going to need to take the file name as well. Thread it through. So wherever we do the parse, here is where we have the file object. We're going to say profile file.name. Okay. Just going to loop through here and column. Let's actually make this path configurable. As long as we're in here, just have it come in. Profiles to a path. Oh, we're going to leave it set instead of init because I might have a thing later that comes and sets it. In fact, I'm just going to let it be settable. I'm going to make it public. I'm going to let it be changed anytime because somebody might go and change the configuration options and you'll just be able to set it. Here we want to save this one as a default. Okay. So then in the app form that we're working on, up here when we construct it, I'll come up with a better place for this later. And pass it div. Okay. So we'll pass it in that string, and then maybe if the user configures it later, we can change where the thing looks at. Profile manager. All right, so then we're going to init the form, and then finally, after we first load, what do I call it? So create the manager object, so init the form, and then profile, load profiles. Is that going to work? Hey, it worked. So if you see here, we got these are our profiles from the folder here. So we loaded up Patreon banner, Twitch banner, video frame, whatever. And yeah, so all these are of type banner except for the video frame one that I added off camera. Do a little bit of experimentation. And yeah, beautiful. So now these are selectable. Yeah, I think I'm going to wrap up here. So just to talk through strategy a little bit, just to talk through strategy a little bit for the next things we're going to do. These are each selectable. So you could select multiple, turn on whichever ones you want. And well, let's call this selection. These are enableable, I guess. You can enable and disable each one. So the ways these are going to interact, we got a refresh button, I haven't wired it up yet. And soon we could do our select all and select type buttons. So the idea here is like, if I have this one selected here, then I can be like select type. Probably instead of select, these should say enable, because select is going to be confusing. I need to disable multi-select, right? Yeah, see? The way I want to use this, I don't want multi-select. So let's see if that's an option really quick. Selection mode app. That it's multi-select, okay. So the whole thing has a multi-select property. Alright, cool. Now it's going to be important for something we do later. So now, okay, even when I hold control or whatever, or shift, it still forces to only one selection. Cool. So let's talk through a little bit just how we're going to use it. When you select one of these rows, clicking it to select it is going to pop up the profile render settings for that profile in this little box over here. Right? Now if you pick a different one, it's going to pop up different settings. And for each of these, we'll just remember them. So like, I guess while you type, like when they change, we'll save them off so you don't accidentally lose them or something. It could have a save button, but it'd be annoying to forget clicking to save it. Or maybe you don't want it to save until you actually know. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But so you can select these and you'll be able to set up the settings over here for each one. And then at the end, you're going to have actions to like render. And here I might have like render selected as a button and like render enabled or render all selected or whatever. But the idea is I should be able to come and hit like select all basically and have it come and check all these boxes. And then I should be able to hit like render all. And that should go through each one of these just like our program has been doing and actually generate each of these output images, the stuff in our outputs directory. You have it generate each of these different things that we wanted to generate. So if I wanted it to come through and regenerate all of these branding image guys, then I could come in here and select just the branding image ones, like except for video frame, and click like regenerate all. And if I wanted it to be, let's say like I'm just working on a video and I wanted a particular like intro screen for that video, then I could pick like video frame. I would enable this one and then come down here, and this is where in this profile render settings is where I plan to put text boxes like title, subtext, blah blah blah, whatever needs to go in there. Maybe paths to other images that I want to get loaded in. And the same thing for a thumbnail. Like I might have a profile that's like a YouTube thumbnail, and when I select that one, then I would want to pick like 2 or 3 other sub images that are going to get composed together into it. And then after I configure those settings, I want to click like a render button. And when I click render, then that should spit out that file into this outputs directory. So then I'd be able to grab it here and go and upload it on my YouTube thing or whatever. Probably in the future, I want to get it to automatically save these as PNGs. I was just doing that manually right now. But it's just a couple lines of code to get it to save as a PNG. But I think for now, that's pretty good. I'm going to check in the changes. We configured the profiles table, push that up to the repository. As before, like we talked about, we have all of this going at Barton Code's GitHub page. It's got a handful of commits in it. I got this branding project. So here, this is where we pushed up. So we got our app, this app form that we were just working on, so we can see. Yeah, it's got all this code we were just doing. So yeah, all this is public. Sign into Stack Overflow. What the hell is it talking about? Okay. Yeah, all the code that we've been adding is over here. You can come to this repository, this thing at any time, and add and check it out. And nobody cares yet, but I think at some point this is going to be a pretty cool thing. Like if this tool actually works, then it could potentially be a thing for the community, you know? Like if I generalize a little bit like what the available filters are, what the available styles are, maybe that becomes maybe in the long term when we run this thing, your settings over here are like all the profile settings, where you're like what colors you want, like what you know, if you've got themes selected or anything like that. And then you could like maybe check a few boxes like I want, or like make some layers like I want this filter, then this filter, then this filter. And then you could just like define a profile from scratch. Right now I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave the way that the filters are applied in code, because you get very general to go through and enumerate and actually add every possible configuration option and then save the files and blah blah blah. We could do that in the future if we wanted, but I have other stuff that I want to do on this channel also. So for now, I'm just gonna do it the simple way. Probably when we load back in next time, we'll work on getting these settings to show up, and we'll work on getting a preview to show up. Yeah, that's the other thing is supposed to happen when you select one of these. It's supposed to put a preview here of what it's currently rendering for that thing. And then if I go and play with the settings, after I change them or after I click preview or something, then it should update it here. So I can just like play with different titles or whatever and see how it's going to lay out the text before I actually do the render. And yeah, we're in a good place. All right, cool. Thanks guys, and see you next time.